welcome back to the Kyber Collective. I'm one of your three hosts, Sig, and I'm joined by Annie.
Hey.
And Flowers.
Hi.
And today we are tackling The Last Jedi.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So we've, if you've followed any of our previous episodes, we have aired some opinions about The Last Jedi previously.
Mm-hmm.
In preparation for today's episode, I will come out and say that I did not hate The Last Jedi when I first watched it. There were many things that I enjoyed about it. And I spent this week reading and watching YouTube videos and basically trying to track down loads of opinions from people who really liked The Last Jedi. Because I think on balance, I'm probably a little bit of a hater.
Yeah, I think that is a great way to go about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because YouTube is filled with like essay after essay after essay of just like hate, and people who never bothered to even like probably ask anyone's opinion on why they liked it. So like I really think that is a great way to go about it.
It is. I've really enjoyed actually watching through some of them. Some of them I have a much better understanding of what people like about this film. And also it's nice because YouTube is filled with people who hate this film. And despite having many complaints with it, I really disagree with a lot of the people who hate the film. I think we disagree for very different reasons sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of it just seems quite sexist.
Some
of it just seems quite racist. Some of it just seems to be throwing toys out of the pram.
That's such a great comparison. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
So we're going to try and not do any of those things today and have a chat about The Last Jedi. But I think we're probably going to wind up being on base a little critical. So if this is your favorite film, I am sorry. This might not be the episode for you, but I now have a much better understanding of why you might like this film. And it's been a really interesting week. Should we start with first impressions? Because I know we have some for this film. Do you guys want to talk about the first time you watched it and how that went down?
Yeah, I mean, reasonable minds can differ, right? Like, we can still understand why somebody might like this movie, like completely. There are parts of it that I like. Like, I think that it's probably the most visually stunning. Yeah. I mean, The Rise of Skywalker had a couple of great, beautiful moments, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. But the first time I saw it was a midnight showing, of course. Like I lived in New Orleans at the time, and I traveled traveled up north for the holidays because it came out around Christmas, and I went to go see it with my brother. It was his birthday. It's cool because like for the past couple of years, this is a huge tangent. I'm really sorry. We have his birthday is at the end of December. So these Star Wars movies comes out on his birthday, so often. And this particular birthday for my brother was his most saddest birthday.
Oh no.
He was the saddest I think I've ever seen him. Really. I mean, I've seen him perkier at funerals before. He was wrecked. It was a horrible birthday. He grew up loving Luke Skywalker so much. So that was sort of like where I was coming from, was like my poor brother. Like, this movie has completely devastated him on his birthday. That's the thing I remember the most, honestly. I mean, like when I first saw the movie, like I was really confused. I'll be honest. Like I was really confused about what I just watched. I couldn't form an opinion for a while.
Yeah, it took a while to absorb. I am a similar camp. My family and I are too tired to do midnight showings. We're in bed by 10. But we always watch it at least opening day or at the latest opening weekend. It's always, usually we do opening day. And so, we packed the car, we went to the theater, we're super excited. I had watched The Force Awakens again in prep, and then I had rewatched the original trilogy, specifically a lot of Return of the Jedi, because I knew Luke was going to come back.
Oops.
So Luke was a big excitement for me. We've talked about how much I love him. So I watched The Last Jedi. I'm with Annie. I was confused. I didn't understand some of the choices that were being made on screen. Visually, yes, it was stunning. I think the use of color contrast in this film was incredible.
Yeah.
But I don't remember loving it. I remember hearing beforehand that it's getting a lot of mixed reaction. And I was like, how bad could it be, though? Like, I don't imagine it could be bad, that bad. I've never seen a horrible Star Wars movie. But when I came out of it, I just remember me and my siblings kind of looking at each other and being like, so that happened. Just a little confused. And it took me a little while to really digest it. I think my concluding feeling was like, it wasn't great. It wasn't awful. It's one that I didn't rewatch in the theater. I tend to rewatch them. I didn't go to rewatch this one. And I've only rewatched this movie, like, I can count it on one hand. And one of them was with you guys. Mm-hmm. But I do remember feeling this sense of relief. Relief that they've made a clear standpoint that Kylo Ren is unredeemable and that we don't have to worry about him being with Rey.
That's cute that you interpreted it that way.
That's how I interpreted it, because I took Rey's final actions as her standpoint, and I was like, okay, so she's drawn the line. This is not a line that's going to be crossed, and now we're going to finally have Kylo Ren as the ultimate villain. Mm-hmm. Like the villainiest villain, because he killed Snoke. So I was like, so he is the primary villain now. And this is a great turnaround. This is different from how the other trilogies were doing it, or at least how it happened in Return of the Jedi. So it was like, so he is the guy. So, but he wasn't the guy. I was wrong. I was very wrong. And
so you took it as that, like, he took over Snoke's place as the ultimate big bad.
Yeah. That's exactly how I interpreted it.
And that he would be like the Emperor in the next movie.
Yep. That is how I took it. That's how. And I remember telling my friend this, because she was like, I don't know, Flowers, like this movie. And I was like, no. Like, this is good. This is a good thing. Like, he's going to be the big villain now. I had a lot to look forward to when I thought The Rise of Skywalker was going to come out. But yeah, I over time, I stopped enjoying it. There's moments I enjoy, but this movie is kind of lower in my ranks. It's not as low as the third one, but it's pretty low.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time with the same friend that I ruined The Force Awakens with. So why he went back with me again, I'll never know. And I vividly remember walking out of the theater and I said something like really upbeat. I was like, that was fun. And he just made this noise. And I like vividly remember being like, oh, are you okay? Like, was it that bad? Like, I thought it was all right. Yeah. And I think coming at it with having just watched The Force Awakens and having that, I think at that point that might still have been the only Star Wars film I clearly remember watching.
Yeah.
I thought it was a better film than The Force Awakens. And I still think it's a better film than The Force Awakens. I have major gripes with it as a Star Wars film and how it fits into the rest of the Star Wars universe. But it's a much more interesting film. It's a film with a point of view, which is more than can be said for The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And like both of you said, like visually, I think there are things about it that are so stunning.
Yeah.
And things about it that are so nonsensical. It hits both highs and lows.
Yeah.
That bombing sequence makes no sense.
No, my God. I have been waiting a long time to talk about that bombing sequence.
I know you have a physics rant. You want to just go for it?
Yeah. Let's get into physics here, kids. I am by no means a physicist, but it is a very near and dear discipline to my heart. I was almost a physicist. So when I saw that scene, I really got the sense that they don't understand how gravity works. Like,
when I can tell, and trust me, I was an art student. Like, when I know gravity's off, it's really bad.
like they should not, those bombs should not have done what they did because they're showing that there was gravity in the well in which they were being held.
Yeah.
Because the sister girl was there and she was not floating around anywhere. Mm-hmm. So let's just say that gravity's working in there and you drop those balls. Like, at the very least, the ones that are right near the bottom, they should not have gone anywhere because they don't have enough they don't have enough force. They don't have enough acceleration. It's not working right. They should not have done what they did. I know that's not as scientific as I had planned. I should have taken my notes out for this one.
Flowers. You know, people would say they had what is their excuse? Magnets.
Magnets. And that's not how magnets work, buddy. I've worked with magnets. I don't remember them doing that.
I think because I know for the bombs are like a huge sticking point for a lot of people. The bombs and the Holdo maneuver as like things that just don't work. And I've seen a lot of people say there's like the whole debate about whether it's magnets or it's gravity or it's whatever is making them work. And you can loophole your way around you can. It. And a lot of people have also said, why do we care? And a part of me agrees, but I think that there's like a level of suspension of disbelief, and we all, I suppose, fall somewhere on a spectrum here, but like, you know it when it's not right. Like if and we get something very close to this, the example that I was just thinking, but I was like, if Leia walks outside of the ship, walks along the hull with like no spacesuit on in deep space, and then like pulls out a lightsaber and like chops off a man's arm while standing on the ship, you're going to be like, how is this possible? You can't breathe in space. And like, yes, it is science fantasy. Yes, there are fantastic elements, but there are still rules to the world. Like,
yeah.
And when those rules are broken, it feels wrong. And like visually for a space battle, it doesn't make sense. And I think that there are maybe too many moments like that in this film. And that's why everyone gets really hung up on it. I would normally argue that I'd normally say that's just nitpicking, but I think there are so many in this film that like it's I don't think it's a nitpick anymore. It's just like a pick.
Yeah, it's like you're really asking a lot of us.
Yeah,
like, over and over again.
And above, like, there are rules about a suspension of disbelief that we expect. Like, in action films, you don't expect medical realism. Like, when people get concussed, no one has to do a concussion test and vomits everywhere most of the time. Like, you just accept that they get up and they're fine.
Yeah.
Even though in real life they would not be. And, like, there's a lot of stuff that happens in space battles that I think are rules that we accept. And I think this broke the rules. I think it was a really good, like, the Dreadnought, I think it has some great scenes that are very reminiscent of submarines, and the bombers, like that thing is shot in very World War II style, which is very evocative of George Lucas's originals. But I think that it's too close to actual bombers, actual airships, which are functioning in an atmosphere with gravity, and that's why the visual doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I really hated the design of those ships.
Yes.
With the bombs. Like they just didn't make any sense. Like in space. No sense.
This is true. None of us really go this deep in nitpicking. So why does it bother us? And it's because like there's just too much. There's too much that we're supposed to suspend our disbelief on. That's something. I became an armchair physicist right now. That doesn't happen. Like it makes me frustrated.
Like you know. Okay, people say this over and over again. There's no sound in space, right?
Yeah.
So Boba Fett's awesome ship in space wouldn't make that awesome noise like boom, you know, and yet I love it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care that it would never be like that because it's just so cool. I can definitely suspend disbelief. This was just dumb. This is just too much.
Yeah. And I think like this falls in different places for different people. So I'm like, if it doesn't bother you, I think that's actually okay. I just well, of course, I think it's okay. Do what you want. But like, I think it's understandable. But like, but I think it falls too far down the line for a lot of people, and that's why this is such a consistent theme in criticism of The Last Jedi, despite being a relatively minor thing.
Yeah, totally agree.
So what I thought we might do is go through the three major storylines. So since we're starting with the bombers, why don't we talk about Poe, who leads the bomber attack, Leia, and Holdo, and that arc of the film?
It's my second least favorite arc of the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I know which one's first, so I'm really surprised you put the other one third. Sorry, carry on.
The arrangement might change as it goes along, but I'm just going to go straight first into I really despise the way Poe was written. I think given what amazing setup and charm he had, that Oscar Isaac brought life to this character in the first one, I felt it incredibly such a disservice to his character and to kind of demote him to this hot-headed, flashy, think I can do everything pilot, which is how similar to how Holdo describes him.
Yeah.
I think it's insulting because this is not at all the character that we knew. We were given any, so it's like we're being told that this is what this guy is.
Yeah, I never got that from the first movie whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
I didn't get that from the first movie. I actually didn't get that from his actions that led to that conversation in this movie, because I think he thought he was making the right call. I think he regretted it later, but I don't think he's the hotshot given the example we're provided. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the direction they took with Holdo, in that she's keeping all the cards to herself and that you just need to have blind faith. I think on one circumstance that's how maybe service works when you're working in that kind of situation, but also there's never an explicit reason why she is doing it like that. Like if she had just explained to the people working for her that this is my plan and I think this would work, and this is what we're going to do, rather than making it so that so many people, not just Poe, are put in a position where they think they need to mutiny. I don't understand the cleverness of that,
Right.
other than giving Holdo this sense of power, I guess, of like.
Yeah.
I agree. Like I know that people would defend her by saying like, well, why should she tell him? Like she just demoted him. Like he doesn't deserve to know. She might think he's like a mole or something. And I'm just like, no, not Poe. But also like there's not many of them left, right?
Yeah.
There's not many of the resistance that's even left. Everybody's getting picked off like one by one. Like y'all need to trust each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just didn't make any sense. It's just one more thing on top of many things that I'm just supposed to accept.
Yeah. I think a lot of this movie is held up on contrivance.
Yes.
And I think that's why it feels quite frustrating. I definitely have heard the theory that Holdo, because they're being light speed tracked, believes that there's someone on the ship who's giving information, and that's how they're being light speed tracked, and therefore not telling anyone makes sense. I'm not 100% sure this is actually backed up firmly in the film. At least that's not the impression I've got, that that's confirmed in any way. In which case that would be bad writing if that's what was intended.
Yeah.
It's very weird thematically. I mean, I know we're only talking about one thread, but you kind of, people have talked about this film's theme being failure, and like the thesis of the film being outlined by Yoda and Luke later on when they have that discussion about failure being the greatest teacher. And like Poe clearly goes through an arc and he learns something, but my question with it has always been, does he learn anything valuable? And like, I agree with you guys that I don't think this was his character. So they've given him a new character for this and then taught him a lesson that his original character wouldn't have needed to learn.
Yeah.
And then when they teach him the lesson, like he's learned to not be so hot-headed and be more conservative with his troops, but he learns it at the moment when Finn is making a sacrifice play for the cannon, because that actually is the moment where you need someone to take down the cannon, and it winds up, I guess, being Luke who does the sacrifice play, but they needed someone to do something. So the moment he learns this lesson in his arc is when he pulls his fighters back at the last stand that they make, but that's actually, at that point, it feels like the wrong move. So I'm like, what did we learn?
That's my question too. Did we learn something of value here? What was there a real purpose there? Everything should be written with purpose, but I feel like the purpose failed in its intention
I think
here.
They all have arcs. Like they have a very clear arc, and I think the arc is executed. But my question at the end of a lot of them is like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end he was able to understand that Luke was giving them time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he was able to clear his mind enough so that he could understand that the little crystal foxes, go ahead and follow them. Like I guess his lesson was, don't be so hot-headed so you can be extra perceptive.
And to trust and like play with others, like teamwork makes the dream work kind of thing, because he goes against Leia's explicit orders at the beginning and he needs to learn how to be collaborative, which I think he does. I don't mind him learning the lesson with Holdo. I think it's very contrived, but I do think that it's like the moment where he realizes that he's actually the one in the wrong. I don't hate that as a concept, but I don't really understand why it had to play out that way, because it does feel very contrived that Holdo's just not telling anyone anything and watching this mutiny happening and just kind of letting it.
And we have to look at this on an audience perspective as well, because as an audience member, we were not given much reason to trust Holdo as well. I think that was very clear in the way that was being presented. So we were meant to also feel quite silly by the end of it, because it's like, oh no, she had a plan all along, and we should have as an audience member trusted the narrative that was going to happen. And I didn't like feeling that either.
And we should trust the women. We should trust Holdo, and we should trust Leia. And I felt like that was the message that I was being given. Was this hot-headed macho dude not respecting Admiral Holdo woman that was above him. I found it patronizing. I found it just because she's a woman, I'm not going to trust this woman. Just because she has cool purple hair, I'm not, because she's not giving me a reason to trust her.
No.
It felt performative,
exactly. Performative.
It was trying to say something, but it did it really poorly. And I'm wary of putting that kind of ideology in Star Wars when it never was there before. So I don't know.
If you want to have something to say about women, fine, say it, but actually say it well in a way that makes sense, in a way that's not so contrived and performative. Because we as women, it's going to get called out. It's going to be like, oh, it's just the woke agenda. Or I don't need this politics shoved down my throat kind of shit. And so it's going to, people are going to bitch about it. If they're going to bitch about it, at least make it good. At least make it make sense.
Yeah.
So that I can defend it. I can't defend this.
I mean, I have a problem with people. There's an argument about The Last Jedi being a feminist film. I think that only works if your definition of feminism is it contains women.
Right.
Because people who call Rey feminist, I'm a bit like, I don't think you understand what feminism means.
No.
I think it's a really interesting discussion that I'd almost like to devote a whole episode to, of either feminism in Star Wars or whether The Last Jedi is a feminist film.
I think that's an excellent idea.
We'll make an episode on that.
I wouldn't have a problem with Holdo being someone that we're not supposed to trust, and the reveal that I feel like if I take this film separate from every other Star Wars film and I have no preconceived ideas about Poe and he just is the macho man that we're presented with. So leaving aside my issues with the changing character, I don't have a problem with her taking him down a peg, but us coming at it from his point of view and having the final reveal being that actually they were on the same side all along necessarily. But it runs contrary to the other ways that themes are presented in the film. So it's like a weird little rug being pulled out underneath you gotcha moment in a way that almost feels like I'm being lied to by the narrative. Because you have Finn and Rose and Benicio del Toro's character, and you're like, do we trust him? Do we not trust him? Who knows? Don't trust him. Then you have Rey and Luke in the back and forth about whether she can redeem Kylo, and Luke being like, that's a really terrible idea. And she's like, no, you did it with Vader. And in both of those, it doesn't match. The Holdo reveal doesn't match the way that you have these other reveals in the other two plot lines. And it does feel like a gotcha, but in a way that thematically is very unfulfilling to me and feels like is not a good execution for the rest of this film. And I think that's part of why there's so much vitriol about her from people who consider it her to be a feminist character because she's talking down to Poe. I think it's because narratively it doesn't fit. I mean, I'm sure there are many people who would complain merely because she exists. But
yes. But if we're going to have intelligent conversation of this,
let's assume that's not the case here. But I don't find anything particularly feminist about it.
Nor, if I just can add one thing, I don't find it feminist, and some people have brought this up, some people that I know brought it up, of how Leia slaps Poe.
Yes.
And I'm like, I seriously hate seeing that in media where that's considered to be this great, amazing thing that women do.
And she shoots him. I don't like it.
I don't like it. I don't like them making this connection to slapping somebody with feminism.
Specifically as well that he's a Latino man who's now been placed as a in a specifically macho position, who's then slapped by a white woman. It starts to get very uncomfortable with the way that his character is written,
and very clear that no thought was put into what the meaning of this and repercussion of this would be.
Yeah, it is like a big like a film stand-in for Strong. It's like I spent the whole Force Awakens episode complaining that Leia didn't have like a point of view, and she has more of a point of view in this episode. She's more involved, but then she's unconscious for half the episode. So like, okay, like feminism is about empowerment, and it's about women's empowerment within narratives, and it's not about women demonstrating power through violence.
No.
So like just because she slaps someone doesn't give her like power within the narrative and therefore make it inherently feminist. Like I think I have issues with the no underwear thing and many other issues about Leia's original portrayal in the original trilogy, but I think the fact that she is accepted as a senator even though she's very young, her gender is not brought up in a way that undermines her credibility very much, although I think occasionally that creeps into the romance with Han. I think that's a much more feminist stance in some ways than seeing her slap someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It drives me bananas.
Yeah, I really hate that. And what they did to Poe.
Yes.
That's kind of close to my heart.
Yeah.
And then further on down the line in The Rise of Skywalker, making him a drug dealer, basically.
Oh,
yeah, it's like stereotype bingo.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on I don't know if you guys felt the same way. I'm curious if you did. The incredible discomfort of watching in the theaters, having learned on the news that Carrie Fisher was dead, and then watching Leia get blown out of space and die, but then come back to life and zoom back in, and knowing she was going to come back for the rest of this film, but was like, Carrie Fisher was dead. Everything about that was very uncomfortable, and I'm not sure that there's anything they could have done about it, but I did not enjoy watching it.
No, it was definitely uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable watching. It was absurd seeing more breaking the rules of space. I think they, like you said, there's not much you could have done about it, but I did not like it. No, I absolutely did not like it. Also,
it was, it just looked ridiculous.
It did.
Yeah, just compared to Mary Poppins in space, I think is the popular, it's the popular meme.
Yeah, I think it seems to be very polarizing, like many things in this film. Some people either loved it or hated it, and there doesn't seem to be much in between.
Yeah,
I think the people who say they loved it are really honestly just forcing themselves into loving it, because that looked ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I found it very hard to take seriously.
Yeah.
I also got really hung up on like, how did they get the door open without bleeding all the atmosphere into space? But that's,
the more space violations happening, breaking the rules of physics. Yeah.
Shall we move on to Finn and Rose, unless there's any kind of last thoughts about Poe, Leia, or Holdo?
I think I just want to say that I thought it was really creepy when Holdo held Poe's unconscious face in her hand before loading him up on the ship to go to Crate.
Yeah,
I just I'm sorry, like I thought it was creepy as hell.
Yeah, she like tenderly holds his face, and I'm just like, girl, he doesn't know you like that. Like, get your hands off of him.
Exactly, he doesn't like you.
Yeah, I concur.
Right. Finn and Rose. We've talked about the promise of Finn. I do not think Finn's promise is fulfilled in this film. I like Kelly Marie Tran, and I'm just very conscious of the fact that she received horrific abuse for her part in this film.
Yeah.
But I do not like Rose. Rose is kind of a psycho. Like, the fact that she just hangs out and tasers people who are trying to leave the ship is just insane to me, and we're supposed to be like, that's cool.
Yeah, because Finn wasn't a deserter, all right? No. Finn never signed any papers.
Yeah. And
Like they brought him there.
Yeah, even if you had like, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, it's really uncomfortable. It's saying like you can basically never leave, which like I guess to an extent I understand because it's such a precarious situation. But also like Finn never, he never formally joined on. He got kind of dragged around a bit.
Yeah,
and that doesn't give her carte blanche to just taser him.
Yeah. So I found the kind of introduction rough going. And then Rose is kind of our mouthpiece for a lot of morals in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm very anti-capitalist. Let's start there. I am down with an anti-capitalist plotline. I'm also against animal abuse, and I don't particularly like casinos. So this plotline should have been fine with me. But when rewatching it, I was trying to put my finger on it, and it's not bad, but it's also not good for me. I think this is where I sit, is that it's very simplistic, extremely simplistic, and I think almost oversimplified. I think the metaphor of freeing the animals feels like a My Little Pony storyline.
Yeah, it's just so dumb. It's just
it feels almost like belittling that you're telling me this. It's like, I know.
Yeah.
Animal abuse bad. Casinos bad. Capitalism bad. Like, this is not something that we're not aware of.
Finn's a very weird person to tell as well, because they don't really engage with his past as a stormtrooper, which, it's not like he signed up. He was kidnapped. No. So they don't really engage with that. And then Rose is like, you see all these suffering, like these people are living in high luxury, profiteering off the war, and real people are suffering. And it's like, I think Finn knows. Finn's had a bad life.
Yeah.
Like, are you trying to make the point that he participated in that suffering? In which case, maybe you should engage more with the fact that he was a stormtrooper. Or if you're telling him, like, he doesn't know, Finn should be like, girl.
Right. Yeah. Just let him have a moment. I don't know.
And then the whole Benicio del Toro's character, whose name, I've seen this film several times now, and I still don't know what his name is. And I actively try.
DJ.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, when he explains war profiteering, like, it's deep.
It's just, the good guys buy the ships, the bad guys buy the ships, nothing means anything. So just do what you want. Just betray your friends. It doesn't matter. Because the good guys will win tomorrow, and then the bad guys will win the next day. I guess that's how he lives his life.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's fine. It's just not something to put into a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
it's very nihilistic. I hated it.
What's the question? What is the purpose of putting a nihilistic character like him other than to foil your plot, right? So, like, right. I didn't find a purpose with him.
I mean, I think he helps illustrate the failure of Finn and Rose's storyline. I mean, because he does exactly what he says, right? He's like, one day you're in, the next day you're out. Isn't that the tagline from Project Runway? I was going to say. But, like, he's on their side. He gives back Rose's necklace. Like, he's had a moment of, like, connecting with them. And he's like, oh, you guys aren't so bad. I'll help you out. And then he turns on them. And he's very, like, he's looking out for number one. And it, by them being on the ship and by him overhearing, I think, post-transmission, he facilitates many more deaths for the resistance. Mm-hmm. So it is a catastrophic failure. But it's very frustrating to, like, the only takeaway that I have from this is that Rose and Finn are exceptionally naive, because when a man says to you, I don't give a shit, I make money selling weapons to both sides, and you're like, I trust you.
Yeah.
I don't have that much sympathy.
I know, he was very clear where he stood.
Yes, it was a failure. They did fail. They accomplished nothing, and they made things worse.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. Yeah.
That's something I really struggle with that arc, which is why it's kind of number one for me, in that it fails its own arc. Like, it doesn't go anywhere. The only purpose that I think it served is to keep them occupied.
Yeah, exactly.
The conclusion of it is Rose's quote, when she stops Finn from sacrificing himself to save everyone, because Finn's arc is pretty clear. It's like, he starts the film not a member of the resistance. He's found one person that he cares for, and then by the end of it, he cares for all the resistance and is prepared to die for them. That makes sense. Rose slams into him and goes, we're not going to die fighting what we hate. We're going to save what we love. And that is the culmination of the arc. And I have been thinking about it for like 5 days straight, and I still don't understand what the fuck that's supposed to mean.
We're supposed to tackle this from a place of love. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
How does she fall in love with him in a day? Also, I don't know. I mean, I love John Boyega. I'd probably fall in love with him in a day, but
that's the most believable bit for me.
That's probably the most believable part. I would look at John Boyega in that space adventure, be like, oh my goodness, yeah.
And then, like, again, it doesn't really tie with the other themes, because you'd think, like, with a line like that, that would fit Rey going to Kylo Ren and, like, pulling him back to the light through the power of love. Then that line would, like, fit the film. But obviously she doesn't. So I'm like, what are you on about? Is it Luke's love? Is it
no? Everything fails. Love. Everything fails, but it's okay, because tomorrow will be fine, and then the next day it'll fail again, and the next day, the sun will come out.
What are you on about is like my tagline for this this movie.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
I'm really trying, man. Like, this film has a lot of really beautiful shots that my eyes enjoyed watching, but I didn't. When they talk, it's real bad. Sorry, that was really mean.
The lightsaber scene is a great microcosm for the whole thing. It looks cool as hell, but when you actually start analyzing it, it is the worst.
Oh no,
it's totally the worst.
Yeah, we should stop while we're ahead with the salt on that scene.
Well, I mean, please, no, salt away. If you have any further salt on Finn and Rose, go for it.
No, I'm reserving.
I just hated it. Yeah, I went into the movie like really, really thinking that Rey and Finn were gonna get together.
Yeah,
and I really liked that idea a lot. I really liked Rey. I still liked Rey. I love Finn. And I thought that it would have been a really cool direction, like, force sensitive couple, they're gonna like start a new Jedi Order. This, like, my mind was going in some crazy places apparently, but boy was I wrong.
Well, I think the goal of this movie was to subvert all of our expectations. I think that was successful.
Yeah, he met that goal. Yeah, definitely. I was wrong.
Yeah. Which brings me to Luke, Rey, and Kylo as an arc. This is the one that bothers me the most, actually. I've been, I think, quite critical of the other two, but I individually as arcs, I think that there are good things in them. There's stuff I can pull out that I like. There's stuff in the Rey, Luke, and Kylo arc that I like as well. None of them seem to fit together very cohesively, despite there is an overarching theme of failure. I just don't think it's coherent.
Yeah.
I think that The Force Awakens painted Rian Johnson into a corner when it came to writing this film. And you needed an explanation for why Luke was not aware of Han's death, was not participating in anything in the galaxy. Inferring that he'd cut himself off from the Force makes a lot of sense. Why has he cut himself off from the Force? I mean, I think there weren't that many avenues you could go down, and disillusionment seems like a relatively reasonable one.
Yeah.
When you're pared down to that few options. I know you guys, I'll let you guys cover Luke's character, because I think you had more of an attachment going in than I did. What pisses me off more is the misunderstanding of Jedi philosophy, which kind of underpins Luke's issues with the Force. And I think this is where I fundamentally disagree with almost everyone that I could find who liked The Last Jedi, because this is the bit that I think people really liked, and it's the bit that I hate the most, which is this idea of the Force as like balanced between light and dark in a kind of yin-yang sense, that like as dark rises, light rises to meet it. So like, and a lot of people that I was watching have interpreted this to say like, well, obviously because the Jedi said he was going to bring balance to the Force, but like obviously that balance means an equal number of darksiders and lightsiders, and it's like, that's not that. I mean, we've done an episode on this. If you haven't listened to it, it's the Jedi philosophy episode. That explains in more detail what I'm on about, but that is not what George Lucas said.
No.
Yeah.
That's not what the Force means. That's not how the Force works. And I think that you can't get around the fact that that is the way the Force works in this film.
I think my chief complaint with the sequel trilogy when it comes to its philosophy does boil down to I cannot accept the way that they've rewritten how the Force works. It's not in keeping with what we understand. and have been told for 40 years. So I consider it's canon, but I don't consider it my canon, which is why I'll always be odds with this. But fundamentally, I am in complete agreement with you because balance cannot be seen as we do with scales, that one side has to be of equal weight to the other. Balance is fundamentally centering yourself as a person and centering of the universe. Yeah. Like I mentioned, I think it was the Jedi philosophy episode. I said it there too. It's not about rescuing orphans and then shooting 12 people. That's not if it's 12 orphans and 12 dead guys, I think then that's fine. No, that's not how balance works, and you yourself know that's not how balance works. And I don't ascribe to that. So if the baseline of the Jedi philosophy and teachings is already at odds with what it should be, it's a struggle going forward. And the sacred Jedi text should have been burned. This is probably controversial, but if that's what they taught Luke, then screw that. They taught him the wrong thing. And going into Luke, that man was my hero. Yeah. And we're getting personal, we're getting to attachment here, so take that as you will. But he was a hero to lots of people, and he was a great person. He was just a good person, and his whole journey in the original trilogy showed perseverance and showed absolute atrocity and failure too. Luke Skywalker has failed before. He knows how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this movie is trying to tell me that the way that he dealt with that was like this, and this is what the person you became. I remember coming out of the theater just being like, God, why is he so mean? he's not the same person. Yeah, he's Jake Skywalker.
Yeah.
Every character I feel like had a character transplant, and maybe not so much Rey, but that's because I think her character has still remained unexplored. But I definitely struggle with the stuff on Ahch-To. I don't like the Jedi teachings that we got there. I don't like the lessons. I think that's not... No. Man, I mean, I guess that's why his school failed, because he sucks as a teacher. I don't know.
He never even went into attachment. They never even mentioned it in the movie.
Yeah. No, they disregard the prequels and the sequel trilogy, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah, you're right. Luke has seen failure before, so you revisit this character after how many years? Everybody's looking forward to seeing him and being inspired by him again, and the big lesson is failure.
Yeah.
I just don't think that was the lesson that needed to be learned in this movie. Yeah, it's not sexy, but also I just found it insulting, quite honestly.
Yeah, and it doesn't have a satisfying conclusion, at least for me. Obviously, all of this is speaking for myself, but that when he force projects and then he fights Kylo Ren and then he's like, psych, was never here, and then he just dies, and I don't find that an emotionally fulfilling resolution of the conflict between him and Kylo Ren. It's not an emotionally fulfilling change of heart from his kind of isolationist policy, really, either, because he barely accomplishes anything before he's dead.
Right.
I'm always a bit bewildered by the movie ends with kind of the legend of Luke Skywalker, and I'm like, what is the legend? There were a handful of rebels there, and they saw him show up and then disappear. They don't know he's dead, do they? And if they do know he's dead, do they think Kylo killed him? I'd be just mostly confused.
As we all were.
Yeah, it's not a very fulfilling... we're doing something really similar. As we record this, we've had 3 episodes of the Obi-Wan show air. By the time this is published, I'm sure the whole show will be almost out, if not completely out. That's a similar kind of thing where we've had a huge gap in time. The character is a different person.
Yeah.
But we have, before we see the changed character, we have access to the information about what it is that has influenced this character over the last 10 years. I think the fact that the Kylo Ren backstory comes halfway through the film in the form of a flashback is not helpful.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's suggested, based on where this arc is going, that we're going to get a more fulfilling redemption and move back towards the light and connection with the Force and realizing himself as a hero again in a way that I don't feel we got with Luke Skywalker in the Force projection and then sad death at the end of The Last Jedi.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was just sad.
Yeah.
I was pretty crushed through that whole thing, and then you see him I just remember kind of just staring into space, being like, real, that's it? Like, I felt crushed. I was crushed.
Someone, I think someone in my theater when that happened, somebody really loudly went, "Did he die?"
No one ever really is gone.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought it was cool how Luke totally like got one over on Kylo. Like he was, Kylo's face when he figured out it was a projection. God, I love that moment. That's one of the best moments.
Yeah.
One of the only best good moments in the movie. Well, it's pretty and Kylo gets served big time.
Yeah, long time coming.
Yeah. He was acting like just a maniac in that when he's up in that, I don't know, it's not an AT-AT, but like a even bigger one.
Yeah.
He's like ordering everybody to shoot that man and he's like, more. And everybody around was looking at him like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he is unhinged. And quite honestly, like everybody's looking at Hux like he's like even worse of a guy. But I totally understood where he was coming from. Like I'd be like, dude, like you're off your rocker, man. Like,
yeah.
And Kylo just treats the way he treats him. I hated it. Like just like force pushing him away, or just like I don't like Nazis, but Hux, like he was just, people treated him just like garbage the whole movie. Like
yeah, he had real whipping boy energy.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't like it. I don't blame Hux for like pulling out his blaster and maybe shooting Kylo when he was passed out on the floor. Like,
no.
I understand completely 100% why he was the spy in The Rise of Skywalker. Everybody's all like, oh my God, that came out of nowhere. Like, I don't understand that. And I'm like, I completely do. Like, Kylo, like, just force smashed him up against the wall how many times in The Last Jedi?
It kind of had Beardo energy by the end, right? Like, I don't remember his name. What's his name in Rebels? We called him Beardo.
Oh,
Callus.
Yeah, Callus.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Callus's arc was much better, but it does have that energy of like, I've gone the other end now, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Oh my
that
gosh,
was a well-developed arc. Although they had more time.
They had more time. I liked that. That was one of the things I liked about The Rise of Skywalker, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, it made sense, honestly.
Do we have any thoughts about Rey and Kylo and the Skype calls, the flowers? I know you said that you thought this solidified Kylo as a villain. Do you have any thoughts on Rey or anything you want to add?
I thought it was an interesting concept that they introduced with Force dyads. I know that fandom had came up with it already by that point. So when I saw that, which is why I had thought the way I did, I was like, oh, so they're acknowledging the fanon. So I was like, I was kind of like, okay, cool, interesting Force concept. Don't love it, interesting. And I thought Rey was a little too gullible, because she took his like discussion there, and she immediately was like, Luke, what did you do? She made up her mind there, kind of. And I always thought she had some healthy dose of suspicion, but I don't think she looked at it too critically enough. But I guess the point was for her to feel like, I have this connection to this guy. Maybe I can turn him back to the right side of things, despite having seen him murder his father point blank.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I was in her position, I would loathe this a lot, having a connection to him. And she despised him. She did. So I appreciated that. But she did, there was some redemption arc that was trying to be done there. So by the time that she meets up with him and Snoke, and then they have that really cinematic fight sequence, I was like, okay, what's going to happen next? Because something has to happen next. Once they'd killed Snoke. And that's why I thought that he was going to be the real villain, because they cut the redemption arc out. They were going in that direction. And I was like, okay, so they've made a clear stance here. I personally do not like the Rey and Kylo Ren / Ben relationship. It's not my jam.
Really?
If you couldn't tell. But I don't enjoy them, which is why I got really satisfied by this movie, because I was like, okay, they've nipped that in the bud. How wrong I was. Yeah, I was wrong there. I was wrong about a lot of things. And then I feel like there's not much else in their interaction in this movie other than Rey being like, you suck, I'm out. And he's just seething because he's lost this one game, and he's lost against fighting Luke. He's just this really angry murder child, like a murder teenager. Yeah, he's terrifying in how his like rage shows, in the sense that I truly would not want to be around this person. He's very violent. And then they also had that another break in physics where they they like push each other.
Yes,
because
the death of the youngling slayer 9000.
Yeah. I don't understand that either.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson did a really good job of just like killing a lot. Guess kill the past, I suppose.
Yeah.
Kill Luke Skywalker, kill Luke's beloved lightsaber. I mean, not beloved by Luke, but beloved by the fandom.
Yeah.
Rip that in two. It was just too much, like what we said from the beginning. There's just too many things that you wanted us to accept. Too many. Just like give us a couple, not like 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things that I liked about Rey in the Force Awakens, and that was kind of continued in The Last Jedi, is Rey shoots first.
Yeah,
she's kind of impulsive. When she got that blaster that Han gave her, like she didn't waste time. She shot the stormtroopers. As soon as she saw Kylo during their first Force bonding moment, she just picked up her blaster and just shot him in the stomach. She didn't ask questions. She thought he was just in the room with her, like, and she just like bam bam, like she didn't give a fuck. And then in the last movie, same thing. She would have ran him through so many times. I love that about Rey.
Yeah, she does run him through once, which is great.
Yeah. So having her almost beat up Luke after having like one hand touchy moment with Kylo.
Yeah.
Like I get it that he was really frustrating on the island, and don't meet your heroes, folks. He was like seriously disappointing or whatever. But like having her like, I don't know, beat him up basically in the rain. I didn't like it. Women beating on men in this movie. I don't know. Is that Rian Johnson's idea of feminism? Because I hate it.
Another question for our upcoming podcast.
I think it would make a good episode to talk about feminism in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. After The Rise of Skywalker, I'll be completely honest. After Kylo turned into Ben Solo, and this goes to Adam Driver's acting, like it was like goes from one person to a completely different human being. And Ben Solo didn't even really talk. It was just, he conveyed this completely different person just through movements. He was very Han, and with the shrug and the shooting from behind. And we'll talk about that during The Rise of Skywalker. But I'd retroactively go back and watch this movie, and I think the Force Bond moments could have been cool. It's a cool concept. I really like the concept. I don't really like the execution.
Yeah.
I could get down with some Reylo, honestly. Like under the right circumstances, I think that they would be great. I could totally get behind it, but the circumstances that they gave us were just, oh my gosh. Can you imagine a dude actually saying to you in real life, you're nothing?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on the dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah. nothing has been a bigger turnoff to me than
Yeah, you're
Kylo
nothing,
Ren in this
but
film.
not to me. But not to me. That's just, and there's actually people out there that think that's romantic.
Ugh.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies is what it does.
I'm gonna put that one in the feminism episode too.
Yeah, there's nothing about their interaction that would convince me that this is a good partner in The Last Jedi.
Not in The Last Jedi.
Other than that, you have this interesting dyad connection with the Force.
Yeah, it is really interesting. It's super cool. I think in an alternate universe, they would make a great love story. Not the one they wrote, not this one, but like, in the multiverse or whatever. Like, I'm sure that they're wonderful. Yeah. Believe me, I've read a couple of fan fictions that are great. So out in those universes, awesome. This universe, ugh.
I remember reading a whole bunch of like fun theories on this before they became an official item in the last movie about how like their Force dyad connection could be because they're actually related, and there's a whole bunch of truth that could be uncovered. And I was like jiving with that. I was like, yeah, if they were like, dyad cousins, that would be neat. And like, I don't know, they were too wild to actually ever come true, but I could swing with it. Like, yeah. I like when this is the example of when good concepts come up in Star Wars. I am on board.
Yeah,
they just have to be done well.
At the risk of being a little controversial, my favorite character stuff is in this segment of the film. There's a lot of things I like here. I at first found the Rey and Kylo dyad hard to get anything out of. Like the first time I watched it, for sure. Kylo Ren just scares me. He scares me too much for me to pay any attention to what was going on. So I was like, oh my God, like get him out of your head, girl, run.
Yeah.
On rewatch.
Yeah. Red flag after red flag.
Terror, like haunts my nightmares. On rewatch, I like the characterization of Rey. I think it's kind of in keeping with her in The Force Awakens, the little bit of characterization that she had. I love the fact that she has the balls to think that she can turn Kylo Ren back to the light. Like she walks up to Luke goddamn Skywalker. I mean, I know he's not having his best day, but she's like, yeah, remember what you did with Vader? I'm going to do this to your nephew, and you should have done it in the first place, and I'm going to be better than you, and I'm just going to shoot myself in like a little torpedo pod, and I'm going to turn him back, and that's because I am amazing, and I am the best Force user. And like, she just has this kind of like image of herself as someone who is somebody, and then the turnaround of I liked when her parents were nobodies.
Yeah.
And that she realizes in that moment, in that really low moment, that like, no, she couldn't turn Kylo back to the light. And she has to admit that she's nobody special. But of course, in that admission, she is somebody special because she's our protagonist. And,
they're all somebody special.
Exactly.
That's one of the things about this movie that bothers me so much is the implication that like Luke and Anakin Skywalker are like Force royalty and Rey comes from nothing. But like Anakin Skywalker was a slave.
Yes.
And little Anakin Skywalker's there saying, I'm a person. Yes. They're all somebody. They're all people. There's no hierarchy. If Ben Solo was this like Force prince or whatever, it's because his mom was adopted into royalty, I guess. Like I didn't like it. I don't like it.
I like it because it's a character moment for Rey, that she's had this obsession with her family, and I think I would have been disappointed to find out that she was like Luke's secret daughter or Obi-Wan's secret granddaughter or I don't know, Palpatine's secret granddaughter. I think that's about one of the worst choices you could possibly have made.
I don't think anything that they were going to do is going to really be that satisfactory, but like what they ended up doing, I just felt was like, haha, fans, you've been thinking about this for a couple years now, and guess what? She's nobody.
I mean, yeah, it definitely has that energy. I still don't mind it because I think as a resolution for her character, I don't know, it kind of worked for me. I mean, it's moot now because it's a lot of people like it. But I wasn't bothered with it.
The problem is they didn't stick with anything. So like even the work that The Last Jedi did, it all gets undone by the next film. So it doesn't stay satisfactory to whatever character growth they were trying to give Rey in here.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I was thinking about this episode before we started recording it, and it's just like it all feels a bit pointless because it just we've talked about this for an hour now.
Yeah,
and like none of this is gonna hold true for the next film. We're gonna have to start again and be
we have to start
forget
yet again.
everything that has happened. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I kind of have to look at them individually. It's very hard to look at this trilogy as a trio and say anything about it other than like, what the fuck.
There are like 3 vignettes with the same characters.
Yeah.
I did love some of Mark Hamill's line deliveries. I quote them all the time, actually. The sacred Jedi texts.
Sacred Jedi texts.
The sacred texts.
This is not going to go the way you think. That's probably one of my favorites, honestly. So the movie was in a total wash because I do say that quite a bit. This isn't going to go the way you think.
That quote has serious Anakin Skywalker energy, by the way. Like, I could see him say that before a battle. This is not going to go the way you think.
Yeah, except for, unlike Luke, Anakin would have been down another arm at the end of that conversation.
It's true. It wouldn't be Anakin without a loss of limb.
Absolute loser. I love him.
So much.
Do we have any final thoughts on The Last Jedi in terms of wrapping it up?
I have one final nitpick with the way that physics works in this round.
Go on, then.
when Rey and Kylo are both reaching for the lightsaber, that I might have touched on it already, but like that's not how that works. I'm not going to elaborate, but please, for whoever makes the next movie, just pick up a book.
Yeah. Don't just ask Pablo Hidalgo if like this is going to work out.
Yeah. Visually stunning. Great cinematic moment. Terrible for Force fans everywhere.
Yeah.
I should have a soundbite here with like Han Solo saying, "That's not how the Force works."
That's not how the Force works.
Yeah, it's just kind of a depressing movie. Like even the end when they make it out of there and Leia's like, "We have everything we need." I'm like, "What? What do you have? You have 5 people in the Millennium Falcon."
Well,
you know? I mean, I'm glad you have the Millennium Falcon. It's great, but like you lost most of your people.
Yeah.
And
your brother.
I don't know, was it all worth it?
Yeah. My final thoughts on The Last Jedi is that it's a very confused film. I find it funny that I've even now I've been more negative than I thought I might be.
Hopefully the criticism feels not personal. It's just
it's
nitpicks
on not personal. It's just that the film was unsatisfying to me. And that's not a reflection on anyone else. It's my opinion. What I find funniest about my level of frustration with this film is this is the one that I actually like the best of the 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's the most interesting. It's visually the one that I enjoy the most. There's stuff in it that I like, and yet I also hate it. I hate it so much.
For all of my criticisms, it's a well-made film. It's not a well-executed film.
I feel like Tyra Banks. I'm like, we were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? When I criticize a film like this, it's because I love it.
Yeah, I think on this one, I think that the director should have actually taken Mark Hamill's ideas about the character into consideration.
Oh, Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
He looks so depressed during the press tours, man.
Yeah.
He did warn us.
One of the things that pains me the most is I know that there's 3 different generations of fans. There's the original trilogy generation, there's the prequel generation, and there's going to be the sequel generation.
Yeah.
And I've come to find, like, just through being, like reading in fandom and everything, the sequel generation does not like Luke Skywalker. And that's
based on the sequels, they have no reason to.
No, that I feel like it's a travesty. It's so fucked up. That's kind of the worst thing for me about this movie.
It's really sad to me. He's not the symbol that he has been his entire career as Luke Skywalker, and
the New Hope.
Yeah, the New Hope. So when I see that kind of stuff circulating on the interwebs, it depresses me deeply, and then I have to get off the
like during the book of Boba Fett when Luke showed up, all of the anti-Luke sentiment on Twitter just really
oh my god, yeah.
It hurt.
me.
It really hurt to see. I can't engage with it because it just makes me really sad and really upset. And I'm really sad that his character assassination has stuck around.
Yeah, it's really sad.
On that appropriately depressing note.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, very sorry. That's the thing. Like the three of us, usually, if you don't like The Last Jedi, you sort of are accused of being like a right wing whiny ass bitch, right?
Yeah.
I can promise we are not those things. Maybe we might be whining about the movie right now, but like we're not your typical The Last Jedi complainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we gave the movie a fair shot. I really do. And if you do like the movie, I mean, I can understand, and reasonable minds can differ, you know? I don't like what they did to Luke. I don't like it.
If you're someone who enjoyed The Last Jedi, I wish I could live in your world where things do make that kind of connection and sense and love, because I wish I could enjoy it, and it's cool that you do. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
Right. Let's do some lightning round questions.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. Which of the sequel only characters do you think deserves the most justice?
Finn.
I would say Finn. I think he was dealt a pretty dirty hand.
Yeah, I'm going to say Finn as well. So,
yeah,
in hindsight, maybe not a good question.
Poe has runner-up, I think.
Yeah, I'll give Poe the runner-up.
Yeah, Rose needs just to be redone completely for her to be qualified.
I think Kelly Marie Tran deserves justice. I'm not sure Rose does.
Yeah, she does. She deserves a much better hairdo than what she got in The Last Jedi. That poor girl.
Yeah.
That hair and makeup person should never be able to work again in Hollywood.
Yeah. Question number 2. Favorite visual moment?
I have a few, but the one that comes immediately to mind is seeing the Holdo maneuver. That color contrast and the speed in which it happens, so cool visually. Doesn't really work logically, but very, very cool.
Yeah.
My second place option would be when they start fighting those red guards in the room with Snoke.
Yeah, those the planes with the salt plane.
Yeah,
that's real cool. That was one of my favorites. Yeah,
and then also visually, just like bombing the hell out of Luke Skywalker. But I mean, it was a cool scene, especially when he just sort of like wipes his shoulder off. Like
yeah, that whole sequence, that bit, and then the leaving the tracks in the sand with the speeders. It's beautiful.
So pretty.
I'm going to go, because I agree with all of those, I'm going to add, I think there's a moment where it pans from Rey and it's a kind of green backdrop, and it pans down to the hole where the dark side is. And it's a really cool shot moving from the green to the kind of like this dark, creepy hole.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm sold on what happens in there with the room of mirrors kind of effect, but I did like the creepy dark side hole.
Yeah.
I thought that was very well designed. It creeped me the hell out. A+.
Really great visual scene.
Question number 3. Yoda says that failure is the best teacher. What failure in the Star Wars universe have you learned the most from?
Is this a real answer or a salty answer?
Whatever you would like.
Okay.
What does your heart say?
I'm going to go with the real answer. The real answer is you can go from the absolute worst version of yourself, like going down into the dark side and being Darth Vader, and you still have an opportunity to have your last moments be good and still be good. And I think that's really a great message for people who think they've done something not good in their lives. And it doesn't mean that you have to stay on one path just because you feel like it's been now chosen for you and there's no point. Yeah, I like that. And I like that as a journey for a Jedi because it means that you can always come back.
Yeah.
You shouldn't handle weapons until you learn how to use them properly. Din Djarin taught me that. He sliced up his own leg with the darksaber.
Yeah, he needed to do some target practice.
Yeah. I think some of the other failures I just feel like are just so like, oh my gosh. Okay, so you want me to like die to learn something? I'm good. You know? It's a little dramatic for me. I love Anakin, but, you know.
I'm going to go with baby Anakin when he's presented to the council. I'm not sure he actually learns this lesson, but I did. Which is when he doesn't admit that he's afraid. And I like the lesson hidden within that about honesty about your own emotions. That it's better to confront them and admit what you're feeling than pretend that you aren't feeling anything at all. And that it can be beneficial to be honest with others.
Yeah. It was a great teachable moment there.
Teachable moment.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Mace Windu.
I love that our last note is going to be Mace Windu.
Yeah, as if I was going to end this talking about anyone else. This concludes our recap of The Last Jedi. I think maybe some of the prequel films are on balance more divisive, but I think this might be the most divisive Star Wars film. So I'm sure there are things that we've said that you agree with and things that we've said that you don't agree with. I would actually really love to hear it. I've really enjoyed looking at criticism on all sides of this film. I actually really enjoy engaging with criticism as much as the film clearly frustrates me. So, if you have something to say, let us know. Love to hear it.
Yeah, let us have it.
Right. Thanks for tuning into the Kyber Collective. If you like what you heard, please give us a like. And if you've got something to say, drop us a comment. Both of these help make us easier to find for other fans and are the best way you can support our work. If you'd like to keep up to date with our episodes, you can subscribe, and you can always talk to us on Twitter at Kyber Collective. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and until then, remember, the crystal is the heart of the blade, the heart is the crystal of the Jedi is the crystal of the Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi, you are one.